Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Mike Tomlin will stick around with this team for this upcoming season and for many more seasons with this team. They look to give him a contract extension, and he said that he's all in with the organization. He also said that he has a lot of faith in Kenny Pickett. That's what he said in his press conference. And he was poking jokes about him taking contract questions, because if you remember, one of the female reporters came out and they asked him, how does he feel about entering the last year of his deal? And he just completely walked off. So he was in a better mood today. That's a good thing for the Steelers. I still think that both sides have benefited. They parted ways, but keeping Coach Tomlin around is not a horrible thing. The last thing that you want to do is let a head coach that's never had a losing season in the regular season, I'm going to get on that in a couple minutes. Last thing that you want to do is go out there, get another head coach. He's a complete failure, and then you have to completely rebuild. But this roster needs a lot of movement, and they need a lot of changes. Now, he's all in on Kenny Pickett, and the organization's all in on him as well. That was apparent even when Mason Rudolph was starting his second game against the Seattle Seahawks, that they had a lot of faith in Kenny Pickett, and they felt like he could still be a franchise quarterback with this team. I'm a big Kenny Pickett fan. You can go back and listen to the other videos. 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in 12 games is not good enough to me, especially for a first-round pick. And I can admit that. It seems like I was wrong on Kenny Pickett. Right now, he doesn't look like a franchise quarterback. They want to bring in competition and let guys either push Kenny Pickett for the starting spot, or if they're good enough, they can go out there and take the starting spot from him. Keep Mason Rudolph around. Mitch Trubisky should not be with his roster next season. And this is where they find themselves in a very murky situation. The Steelers are not a bad football team, and I do believe they will never finish under 500 with the way that things are right now, as long as Coach Tomlin is the coach with this team. The problem is you're stuck in that middle area. You're not a true Super Bowl contending team, and you're not bad enough to have a top 5, the top 10 draft pick. You're going to always have a pick that's either 17, 18, or 20. And to some organizations, that's a great thing. To Steeler fans, it's not a great thing, because you either have to trade up for the really good players that you want, or you have to just cross your fingers and hope that they come down to you. The problem is that quarterback spot. Kenny Pickett has not shown that potential that the Steelers are looking for, that he could be a top 5 to top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And a lot of people will say, well, they don't need that play coming from that position. But you look at the division that they're in. They have Joe Burrow. They also have Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson in that division. It's a tough division. The fact that they made the NFL playoffs dealing with all the injuries that they've had, that's a great situation, especially with the question at the quarterback spot. But the problem is when they get to the dance, they can't finish it off. Coach Tomlin, in his last 12 playoff appearances, is 3-9, and he's 8-10 in the playoffs in general. The lack of playoff success is screaming right now. Great regular season head coach. In the playoffs, not so much. And it's not all on Coach Tomlin. Kevin Colbert, who was a former general manager with this team a couple years ago, really screwed this team over. Najee Harris has been a solid running back with this team. He's been very good, some would say. Over 1,000 yards in every single season in his career, but they could have used an extra offensive lineman. Hopefully they go out into this draft and get another offensive lineman as well. You have Broderick Jones at the right tackle position, the first round pick from Georgia. He had a lot of good moments, a lot of bad moments as well, but he looked very good on the back half of the season. I think that this kid can be a star tackle with this team. Far as Dan Moore Jr., I don't want to ever see him as a tackle ever again. He's a guard with this team. That is what he is. They have him at the tackle position. He allows too many pressures, and he allows too many plays to where the defensive end blows up the run game. He's not good enough at that tackle spot. The rest of the offense is pretty solid. Najee Harris is a good running back, over 1,000 yards rushing this season. Jaylen Warren, 784 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 5.3 yards a carry. They had one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL throughout the season. Deontay Johnson is a very good wide receiver as well, and he missed a lot of time this season dealing with the hamstring injury that he suffered against the San Francisco 49ers. But when he was able to go out there and stretch the field with Mason Rudolph, and when they fired Matt Canada, there was a better situation. 717 receiving yards in the season, 5 receiving touchdowns. And George Pickens is phenomenal. 1,140 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. Those are great numbers for these wide receivers, because Matt Canada was in there just calling a bunch of vertical plays, and it wasn't good enough at all. So you have good wide receivers that can master problems of Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett can't read certain NFL defenses and his arm isn't strong enough. And I'm not trying to come on here and just say that he's a garbage quarterback, but right now he's not a good quarterback for this team. That can change with a brand new offensive coordinator. And it was something else that Coach Tomlin said in this press conference. They're going to look outside the organization for once to bring in a guy to call plays with this team. The offense was so bad this season with Matt Canada, they fired him. Something the Steelers rarely do. They went out there and they fired a coach at a certain position at the offensive coordinator spot, and they went in, they had Coach Sullivan and Coach Faulkner both join heads together and try to call plays, and the offense did look better. But they need to go out there and get another tackle, and they need to figure out this quarterback situation. Either it's Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph for the next season, because there's no point in trading up in the NFL draft and just trying to reach on a guy. And when you look at free agency, this team's not going to go out there and sign Kirk Cousins. They're not going to do that. With them saying that they're committed to Kenny Pickett being the starter, that washes that all out the window. And I see Kirk Cousins going back to the Minnesota Vikings. And you look at the free agent class right now with the quarterbacks that's been projected, besides a guy like Russell Wilson, you don't have that many options. And would a Steelers team want to go out there and have a guy like Russell Wilson compete with Kenny Pickett when Mason Rudolph will be cheaper? And Mason Rudolph knows the system and he knows these guys, and the team rallied around Mason Rudolph as well. It seems like we're going to be in a situation to where they bring it back with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. That seems like it's more likely. You also have Pat Freiermuth as well, who is a very good for sure-handed tight end with this team. 308 receiving yards on the season and 2 receiving touchdowns. The problem is with Pat Freiermuth, he struggled with injuries, but when he's fully healthy and when they give him the football, he's been very good. The thing is with Pat Freiermuth, he hasn't been used as much since Big Ben retired. And that goes back to the point I was saying earlier with Kevin Colbert. He was just trying to stack this roster up as much as possible and just trying to squeeze the last little bit that they had out of Big Ben by drafting guys like Najee Harris and drafting guys like Pat Freiermuth. Instead, the quarterbacks in this roster rarely ever use Pat Freiermuth. Mason Rudolph did look his way more than Kenny Pickett, but Kenny Pickett is a guy that zones in on either George Pickens or Deontay Johnson, and that's it. He did have some key plays to Calvin Austin III, but that was it. When you look at Kenny Pickett throughout this entire season, when he was fully healthy, he only had one multiple touchdown passing game. He only had one, and that was against the Las Vegas Raiders, where he had 2 passing touchdowns. Other than that, he did not have another game this season where he threw multiple touchdowns in the game. That was the only game he did this season. And if you want to see that, you'll have to go back to what he did his rookie season. And the last time he had over 300 yards passing, he did that against the Buffalo Bills in a blowout, and that was over a year ago. Kenny has to play better. 6 passing touchdowns in 12 games is ridiculous. And I understand that he played with hurt ribs against the Tennessee Titans, but he was missing throws all season long, and he did not do good with pressure either. Hopefully Kenny Pickett can develop, because if he can't, the Steelers are going to find themselves in another situation to where they might end up just being 9-8 or 10-7 with lackluster quarterback play. And then you look at the defense. The defense was very solid. Their front 7 is tremendous because of TJ Watt. He didn't get to play against the Buffalo Bills, sadly. He would have been a huge difference maker with this team. They're 1-11 without TJ. They had to find a way to go out there and try to mask those problems without TJ Watt being their entire defense. 19 sacks on the season, led the league in sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 1 interception. And you also have a guy in Alex Highsmith. Now, he did not have that same productivity this season, but he was still a very good pass rusher. 7 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. Now, Patrick Peterson, I mentioned it a couple of days ago. He's not a true cornerback in the NFL anymore, especially as a number 1 corner. But Joey Porter Jr. has that potential. In the last 4 to 5 games, the kid looked very good. He did get knocked out of the game against the Buffalo Bills with a concussion, but he looked very good in the last couple of games of the season, especially against DK Metcalf. The thing is with Patrick Peterson, he can be a very good safety in the NFL. That's the thing. As a corner, he could not stick with guys anymore. We saw that in the Baltimore Raven game a couple months ago, and we saw that against the San Francisco 49ers against Brandon Ayuk. Patrick Peterson has value to the secondary because he's a veteran. He's been around the NFL, but only if he's at the safety spot. And the problem is the safeties are strong on this team. Micah Fitzpatrick was not disruptive this season because he missed a lot of time, but when he's fully on, he's a very good safety with this team, and DeMonte Case is a very good safety as well. Levi Wallace is a solid corner when he's a number 2 or number 3. That's it. So their secondary needs a lot of work as well. You have Alex Highsmith, you have TJ Watt, you have Cameron Hayward, who is also awesome as well against stopping the run and getting things done. But his age is starting to show. Only 2 sacks on the season. Usually he has high productivity of getting pressure on the quarterback, stopping the run, and doing it all in the interior of the defense. But now you're depending on guys like Keanu Ben and Larry Ogunjobi to try to stop those things. You also have Montravius Adams as well. That was the guy that got the friendly fire contact with TJ Watt. He played some good snaps with this team as well. So I do still worry about the interior of their defense, with Cameron Hayward being on the decline and with them not having a suitable replacement just yet. Keanu Ben can be that guy, but he needs to develop over this offseason. And the linebackers with this team. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Ever since Ryan Shazier went down a couple of years ago, they have been able to figure out this position. They drafted Devin Bush. He had that one season when he was a rookie. After that, he was a complete bust, and he went to the Seattle Seahawks. He was talking all that trash, and they ran over him over and over and over again. And even when he wasn't on the field, they ran over the Seattle Seahawks. That's just a credit to the run game. But since then, they've had a lot of plug-and-play guys. Cole Holcomb was a free agent signing, looked very good with this team. The problem is he's always struggling with injuries, and was another friendly fire situation where he hurt his knee against the Tennessee Titans. Then you had Quan Alexander come in, and he looked phenomenal. Then he tore his Achilles. So you have 2 linebackers right there that are injury-prone in the past. That's what history shows. In this draft class in the first round, draft an interior linebacker. Get this done or go back into free agency and add some depth as well. But they have to get the middle linebacking spot right with this team. You also have a Landon Roberts as well, who looked very good for his time with this team. And he wasn't even supposed to be the starting linebacker with this team. He was just supposed to be a rotational piece at that spot. Solid tackler, but the athleticism is not there. So when you run into running backs like James Cook, when you run into running backs like Christian McCaffrey, they cannot go out there and stop the run against those guys. And Cole Holcomb was healthy that game against the San Francisco 49ers. They just got overwhelmed up front. So you're going to have to get more aggressive up front. And that's one thing that Mike Tomlin has put a huge emphasis on since he joined this team. Run the football. They've solved that problem. You have 2 very good running backs, 2 very good playmakers in Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. You're going to have to go out there and stop the run with the defense. And I do worry about this because when TJ Watt goes down, and anything can happen in the NFL. He's one of the best defensive players in the NFL today. To me, he's the best defensive player in the NFL today, and he should be defensive player of the year. But when he goes down, the entire defense goes down. They're going to have to go out there and find someone or find some pieces behind TJ Watt to figure that thing out. I do trust Coach Tomlin to try to go out there and patch things up, but there's only so much you can do when that quarterback spot is looking ugly. And right now it's ugly because they're committed to Kenny Pickett, and I'll take the L on it. Right now, he does look like a bust. He hasn't been able to stay fully healthy with this team last 2 years. I understand his rookie season was a bit weird because Mitch Trubisky started some games. I hate on Mitch Trubisky a lot. But I will say this about Mitch Trubisky. He will go out there and throw a touchdown, and he's going to go out there and maybe throw 2 to 3 interceptions as well. The thing is with Kenny Pickett, he will go games without throwing a single touchdown. He will look like the ultimate game manager. If you stop the run against Kenny Pickett, you completely just stop the entire offense. The thing is with Mason Rudolph, he may not be perfect, but he will go out there, he'll sling the rock, he'll put the ball in harm's way, but he'll give these wide receivers a chance. Kenny Pickett, more often than not, did not give these guys a chance. And a lot of that did come down to play calling. He did look better when you did have Coach Faulkner and Coach Sullivan calling plays. But at the same time, against the Arizona Cardinals in the first half, before he got hurt with the ankle injury, he did not look particularly well in that game. He did do some good things against Cincinnati Bengals, but the guys that put the points on the board were the running backs with the team. It wasn't Kenny Pickett. I'm not saying that he can't go out there and make throws, because he can. It needs to be more consistent. I don't trust his arm, and right now his body doesn't seem like it's meant to be in the AFC North division. But they're bringing back Coach Tomlin. They're running this thing back. All I can say is just go out there, try to retool this roster, because they don't need a complete rebuild. You don't need to go out there and tear everything down. Like I mentioned before, you have good players, and they're young. You have Deontay Johnson. You have George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Joey Porter Jr. You have some of those good guys on this roster. They don't need a complete rebuild, but they need a lot of patchwork to this team. It's just hard for me to go out there and say that this team's going to be any better next season than it was this season. I find it hard to believe that they're going to go out there and lose to teams that only have 2 wins next season, but that's possible. through every year in the Steelers organization, they have at least lost to a bad football team once or twice in the season. And it seems like the sky is falling, and the next thing you know, Mike Tomlin goes in, he wakes up, and they play up the competition. That's just one of those things I don't want to see next season, is playing down the competition. Please, no more of that. If a team only has 1 or 2 wins, go in there and take care of business. I'm sick and tired of seeing this team be in the same situation. You have to depend on another team to go out there and take care of business for you to be in the NFL playoffs. But this team, they're going to be solid moving forward. They have the right pieces. It just comes down to the coaching. Pay attention to who they want to bring in at the offensive coordinator spot. And I will say this for Coach Tomlin as well. Go out there and get a guy that wants to pass the football and try to help develop Kenny Pickett or try to help Mason Rudolph as well. But at the end of the day, you can bring in the right coaches. It's going to come down to, can Kenny Pickett be talented enough to take this team to the next level? They have the defense that was helping them out for the first half of the season, because if you go back to the Los Angeles Rams game, they were giving them short fields. And that was the only time that Kenny Pickett was able to throw touchdowns. 3 of his passing touchdowns this season, because he only had 6 of them, came within 15 to 20 yards when the defense was able to go out there and get interceptions and get takeaways for him and force fumbles. That can't happen. He has to be able to go out there and lead this team down the field when the ball is at the 25 to 30 yard line. You can't go 3 and out or have these dumb plays with Kenny Pickett. If he wants to be the true starting quarterback with this team, he has to be better. He's going to have to go out there and carry the team on his back. You have too many weapons around you for you to be in this situation. Now, they fired Matt Canada. They bring in a brand new offensive coordinator. It's no longer going to be the excuse that the play calling is trash. They're going to start looking at Kenny Pickett and saying, hey, this is year 3. You need to be better. And usually quarterbacks do step up in the 3rd year or their 4th year with the team. But we need to see some improvement with Kenny Pickett. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Steelers long term? And are they making the right decision by bringing back Coach Tomlin? I know how some of y'all feel about Kenny Pickett as well. Let me know in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one, guys, stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Peace.